Okay, so 2022 was a somewhat eventful year for emerald ash borer here in Maine. We do have quite a few new detections, so to speak. As most of you are aware, we do have two core areas in Maine that are affected by emerald ash borer presently. So I'll start up north. So most of this infestation zone is confined pretty much to the border and the river valley there. So we haven't had too many new detections up there. We did have one in Fort Kent this year. So that was through the use of a girdle trap tree. So I'll have a slide on that later on the girdle trap tree program. But yeah, from what we've seen so far, obviously EAB has been in northern Maine for years now. It's been progressing, relatively slow, certainly in comparison to southern Maine, where we've seen some really rapid progression. So on that note, yeah, moving on to southern Maine. So within the regulated area, we're seeing a lot of local spread, natural spread within those areas. So you can kind of see the trajectory on a year-by-year basis in this map on the right. So yeah, 2021 was significant that we added southern Oxford County to the map. And then, yeah, I'll get onto these as well. So we had two pretty significant detections in 2022. Given their locations, they're both in non-regulated areas. So I'll talk about some of the regulatory boundaries. But the first one of note is in Lewiston. So that represented the first county detection for Androscoggin County. And yeah, that was basically, a roadside tree exhibiting woodpecker damage that we observed and then followed up on and found a pretty decent or not significant or extensive infestation, but one that's likely been there for a number of years as we've seen when we find these. They usually have been there for several years. And then the next being a tree in Oakland on the side of I-95, so right in the Oakland Waterville area. And again, that represented the first county detection for Kennebec County. So those are the big new updates. And I'll just mention in the southern Maine regulated area, some of these towns are new. So I believe Casco, Naples, and Gray were new in 2022, as well as Dayton, basically just kind of filling in some of the blank areas on that map for the southern regulated zone. But then other towns like Freiburg, Limerick, and Yarmouth have had detections in the past. We've just wound up detecting EAB in new areas in those towns through other methods. So again, that kind of indicates that local spread that I was referring to there. So as many of you are aware, emerald ash borer still is a regulated pest here in the state of Maine. So something we spend quite a lot of time on in terms of regulatory enforcement and laying out these boundaries. So I like to always show these maps side by side so we can see where we came from and where we are now. So on the left there, you can see the previous boundaries of the regulated zone as of last year. And then this map on the right, and I apologize, it's not super visible in the PowerPoint here, but all these maps are available online. We have a pretty extensive emerald ash borer regulatory and just general info webpage. So Amy can probably pop that into the chat as well. If anybody hasn't seen that, that's a wealth of resources, especially if we have any new folks tuning in. But yeah, basically the major changes were the addition of two emergency order areas in response to that Lewiston, Auburn, and then the Oakland Waterville find. So you can see how that blue hatched area has expanded to encompass those new detections. And yeah, we're still doing some survey work. We did quite a bit of survey work in between. So as you can see, the Oakland Waterville emergency order area is obviously separated from the main body of the regulated area, but we haven't found EAB in between. So for that reason, we have chosen not to connect those areas. So the Oakland Waterville detection kind of remains as an island, so to speak, until we have some more information. So we'll see what we uncover during our survey in the winter months. But basically, yeah, these boundaries change all the time, especially if you're a municipality on the edge. Pay attention to these. We probably will be seeing some changes by next year, so keep an eye out for those. But yeah, like I said, these maps are always available in their current form, so keep an eye out. They do change. And a question we get a lot is what's the purpose of all this regulatory work? What are we trying to protect here in Maine? So here you can see those detection points, so those red dots, with a buffer area indicating, a likely infested or a possibly infested area. So as you can see, the vast majority of Maine is still EAB, as well as that green hashed area. So that green area in the center of the map is the basal area for ash. So as you can see, even though ash is only 2% of all the ash trees in Maine, it's certainly concentrated in that belt there in central Maine. And so, the Oakland Waterville detection there is particularly devastating because we were doing quite a good job of keeping, things restricted to southern Maine. And obviously we can't prevent natural spread, in short distances over a year, but that obviously represents a likely human-aided spread to a site up there. So despite all these statistics, still only 16% of Maine's ash trees fall in regulated areas. So, well over 80% are still healthy and EAB free. So that's a huge resource, and especially important to protect with all the other forest health issues we have going on in Maine that you're probably familiar with. So I'll just give an update on some of our monitoring activities. So obviously we're always on the lookout for EAB. So one of our core programs is still the Purple Prism Trap monitoring program. So we use these in non-regulated areas. And you can see on that map how kind of, we don't really trap, up near Edmundston on the Canadian border there, because we know that area is infested, and the same for southern Maine. Most of York and Cumberland County, have no traps, but we put up about 200 traps each and every year. So we check them twice a year, once in the middle of the season and once at the end when we take them down. So quite an extensive survey. Again, an early detection tool in non-regulated areas. So we did recover 6 beetles in the genus Agrilis, which is the same genus as EAB, but those are all native beetles. So no EAB were detected through this survey in 2022 here. So we're glad to see that. Another program we've been working on in cooperation with the Urban Forestry Group, Project Canopy, is this green funnel trap survey. So unlike the Purple Prism Trap survey, this survey is actually geared towards the regulated areas. So, this is basically a tool for monitoring that local spread and how we've gotten a number of these new detections, in the same town that we know has a population of EAB, but in a new area. So, those examples right there, Freiburg, Yarmouth, we've had multiple detections in those towns, and, some of them have come through these green funnel trap samples. So big highlight there, and we've had some other detections. So the Casco and Naples area of the map is now filled in. We did have this detection of EAB and a green funnel trap in Casco, so we're kind of filling in the gaps on the north side of Sebago there. So, no major new finds. Obviously, we found some new populations in known infested towns through this program, but nothing super alarming, fortunately. Another program we participate in is biosurveillance. So if folks aren't familiar with this is a pretty neat program. So there's a native predatory wasp that actually hunts metallic wood boring beetles like emerald ash borer. So this has been found in other places to be pretty effective if you're in an EAB populated area. But anyways, these are ground nesting wasps, and we can monitor their colonies to see what kind of prey they're bringing back. So we do that actively each and every year where available. Sometimes these colonies, disappear or whatever, but we find the most reliable ones and give them multiple visits to monitor the prey items and stuff like that. So as you can see, it's pretty lucrative compared to the Purple Prism Trap survey, where 200 traps returned, 6 metallic wood boring beetles. When you use these specialized insects to do the work for you, we were able to screen 233 beetles. Unfortunately, again, none of these are EAB in 2022, but we have found EAB at one of these colonies in a known infested area in the past. And like I said, they've done this in other states for detections as well. So pretty neat program. Another trap program, and maybe some people on the line have participated in this. This is the Girdle trap tree program. So as you can see, here's what the distribution looked like around the state in that map on the right in 2022. So again, we kind of use this for both purposes, and it's kind of based on cooperators, but we certainly utilize it, in regulated areas to monitor that natural spread, as well as non-regulated areas. So most of the effort is towards those non-regulated areas, but this is a very effective tool. We've had a lot of success, quote unquote, with detecting EAB through this method. So as you can see, and I mentioned on that first slide, Fort Kent this year was found through a Girdle trap tree. detection. And then again in southern Maine, 2 trees in Portland and 1 in Yarmouth. So yeah, basically, if people don't know, it involves artificially injuring a tree through girdling in the spring, which puts the tree into a state of stress that emits certain volatiles and stuff that emerald ash borer can pick up on, and makes it a more suitable host. And then in the fall, we go back and destructively sample these trees by peeling to look for EAB larvae. So yeah, if people are interested in this, again, check out our website, or you can check in with Amy at forestsouth.gov. We're looking at Maine.gov. We're looking for cooperators each and every year. We have some repeat customers, but we're always looking to try this in new areas. So if you're interested in it, please reach out, and we'd love to get volunteers lined up for next year. Biological control is one of our big management activities for emerald ash borer here in Maine. So ever since we were able and we started receiving parasitoids, we've been releasing them in southern and northern Maine. So basically, we continue to do so actively in southern Maine because of all of the new infestation sites. We constantly have new areas we can look at to release them. In northern Maine, we've done repeated releases at certain sites, and we don't have a lot of new sites because EAB really hasn't spread. So the pattern is to release for a certain number of years and then go back and monitor for a few years to see whether you have population establishment. So that's really the phase we're at in northern Maine right now, but we're not quite at in southern Maine, although we do some recovery work in southern Maine as well, but we again are actively releasing. So you can see the totals there, over 10,000 Chasticus, 7,000 Spacius, and 13, almost 14,000 Ovius. So yeah, pretty big numbers. In the grand scheme of things, we'd always love to be releasing more, but that's what is available to us. So that's what we're releasing. And yeah, as I mentioned, that recovery work has shown in the at least in northern Maine, hopefully we've recovered Tetrasticus planopenisi for the first time in 2021. So that's a good start. Obviously we'll continue to monitor and make sure that population, or that natural population, persists. So hopefully we'll get some more recoveries in 2022. I think we're still looking at those samples. So, but 2 years of recoveries in a row would indicate we have good establishment there. And then obviously these are natural parasitoids, and they can perpetuate their own population. So yeah, and like I said, the one thing about this, these are notoriously difficult to recover. So we haven't recovered the other 2 yet, but we continue to work on that, and I believe eventually we will. So that's basically the short summary of all the EAB work we're doing in the state. And then, as we go into winter here, I just want to point out to folks on the line, most of our, detections that get reported are through woodpecker activity. So, it's been a reliable, but unfortunately, a little late in the game detection tool. It means EAB is well established in an area by the time trees start to look like this, but we still do really want to know about this and need to know about this. So if you see anything like this, please call it into us so we can follow up on it and see whether we have EAB in a certain area, or there's a lot of false alarms that look like this. But this is the overall patterning. That photo on the right there, we call it blonding, but the woodpeckers will remove small bark flakes and reveal that light colored inner bark. And this is what it looks like in close up on the left here. As you can see, a couple examples where that bark flake is missing. And then those holes associated with it mean that an EAB larva has been extracted from that hole. So that's really what we look for. And then trees like this, we go and we peel to see what's going on beneath the bark, so we can see. I bring it up because we're supposedly headed to winter here. It doesn't really feel like it or look like it, but this is really useful. When you have fresh snow on the ground and you see anything like this piled up underneath an ash tree, it's kind of a dead giveaway. So yeah, please always report this stuff to the Maine Forest Service if you see anything like this, pretty much regardless of location. Like I said, we're mapping new spots, but we're also monitoring that local spread in areas where we know EAB exists extensively. So for our records, this is really valuable. So that's all I have on EAB. So we can, I don't know if any questions came into the chat or not, specific to EAB. does not look like it. So yeah, if anybody thinks of any EAB questions, please get them in the chat. We can address them at the end of the talk, or you can open up your mic at the end. We'll have a question and answer session, but for the time being, then I will stop sharing, and we will go to Mr. Tom Schmelk to talk about brown tail moth and winter moth.